Welcome. I'm Liz Taylor, ocean explorer, naturalist, and entrepreneur.
And I'm Sylvia Earle, oceanographer, ocean elder. Thank you, ocean elders, for hosting this. Founder of Mission Blue. What else? National Geographic Explorer.
Well, this is our show, Dive In, where we host informal and open conversations with the ocean community on topics of wonder and interest. Glad to be back again and hope that everyone has made some time to get outside. One of our longtime Dive In fans, Diver Dan, sent us this reminder t-shirt. Where's yours?
Oh, yeah, right.
Hold it up.
Here we go. This is, we should just bear in mind, one way to save the ocean is to make sure that no child left dry. Get out there, get down there, get wet.
Yes, please. Well, I'm going to start to share the screen here.
No grown-up either,
That's right.
The kids can lure their moms and dads to get out and see who's down there in the sea.
But before we do any of that, we have to remind everyone that
the world is
blue.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No blue, no green.
No
else either. Ocean, where the action is, including today's action.
Yes. And later on, you can put your questions into the Q&A box as we get through our conversation today.
Should be some great questions because the topic is, what is this? This is Nudibranch.
Nudibranch. And last month we talked about, in October, we talked about cephalopods, octopus, squid, all their relatives.
These are the relatives.
They are relatives, but this
gastropods.
Is, yep. And these are where the octopus are those kind of masters of immediate camouflage. The nudibranchs are just as spectacular.
They certainly are.
And they certainly are, they start off their life as the larva with a little shell. And tell us about them.
They morph into these sea snails without the shell. So we're going to hear more from the expert here.
Thank God that worked.
Yes, it does. I mean, they're absolutely unbelievable, like butterflies. You can't imagine that such colorful, extraordinary creatures can actually exist. Each one is like a little art form.
They truly are. They're such a nice surprise to come across them, out in the tide pool or when you're diving. And we had Kathy Boyer in our seagrass episode, and she showed us the one that just really blends in with the eelgrass. It's almost undetectable on just this little greenish, brownish critter in there. But so many of them are just incredibly flamboyant. I think one of the first ones I remember seeing was the lemon peel in the tide pool, and it's just this brilliant, bright yellow object there.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Who are you?
Yeah.
So, is this a David Duboulet?
It is.
Image?
It is.
Yeah, you don't know looking at this that critter is really tiny. Tiny. I don't know exactly how tiny, but to be able to photograph them as if they're the only creature in the world, I think is sheer genius. Really beautiful.
But today we're going to have Rebecca Johnson joining us to talk about her work with these animals. Can you turn on your camera and microphone, Rebecca?
There she is.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Great.
So, and I really appreciate you sharing so many of these images, and we're going to go through these and, let's dive in about nudibranchs. Kind of tell us how you got interested in these animals and their ecosystems.
And what is that little spray of stuff on its back?
All right. I can so the spray of stuff on this one's back. So this one is actually tiny, like you said, Sylvia. It's probably, I don't know, maybe an inch, maybe on the biggest. And that little spray on the back are the gills, right? So nudibranch actually means naked gills, right? Because unlike their shelled relatives whose gills are hidden under that shell, these guys have their gills just right out there in the open, showing in that little circle of gills. is how they breathe and where they exchange oxygen.
Such a
That
cute.
surface. This one's really cute. This is a good example. Those gills are great. And this one, this is one of my favorites. This is actually, this is here because this is how I got started working on nudibranchs with this slug, right? So this is also a very tiny slug, very minuscule, I would say, yeah, maybe half an inch at most. So the pictures are deceiving, right? Because you see these big, beautiful pictures. But this slug is found in the tropics, right? This is a tropical species. And when I was in college, I went to UC Berkeley, and I was fortunate to take a field course in Moorea in French Polynesia.
Oh, great.
And I studied nudibranchs, right? And so what I really wanted to do originally was to test whether or not fish would eat nudibranchs, because their color pattern, right, is known to be a warning coloration that they taste terrible, kind of like some butterflies. And so I had this whole experiment designed to test, to feed nudibranchs to fishes. And it turned out I couldn't do that work because I didn't have the permits to work with the vertebrates. And so I had to redo my whole project. And so I basically did a diversity survey of nudibranchs all around Moorea. And I found this species there, and it turned out that it was undescribed. And so when I came back to California, I came to the Cal Academy actually and met with Terry Gosliner, who's the senior curator of mollusks here still. And I said, hey, I found this species. I had drawings of it. You know, this was in the mid-90s, so that I didn't have, I had like some slide photographs, but there was no digital photography really. And he said, hey, I found this in other places in the world throughout the Indo-Pacific, and it's undescribed. And so you should come here and do an internship with me, and we should describe this species. And so we did. And in that first work, we described this species and 11 others that were undescribed. And so since then, I've been working on understanding the diversity of this amazing group. This is called a chromadorid, like a brightly colored dorid, which is a type of nudibranch, which has this little circle of gills that we talked about. That's how you can tell it's a dorid or one way. So I started working on these, and I've been working on them ever since.
It seems so improbable. Orange horns, if you will.
Yeah.
And then this little spray of gills. I mean, it looks like a piece of candy.
Yeah. It doesn't look real. Like, it's hard to imagine that they actually really exist, right? Like when you see this photo.
Seuss, Dr.
Yeah,
Seuss.
it is a Dr. Seuss. And maybe that's what makes them. This is the same species. You can see it looks a little different, but
It's a little
Yeah.
more
same
scrunched
species.
up.
A little
Yeah.
scrunched up, right?
And on a little more colorful background.
Yeah, I think that might be a scallop actually. And
Oh,
this one is just a like a little montage of many of the species that I've described, right? So in this group, these like really brightly colored chromadorids is the group that I've worked on most. And so you can just see some of the diversity of this group in this.
there's only about 3,000 known, I understand.
Right.
I wonder how many there actually are.
Yeah.
I bet, yeah.
These are ones that you've described. What else is
Right.
out?
It's really interesting, you know, when we did the installation of the underwater pavilions down at Catalina Island, we helped the artist Doug Aitken install these big structures in the dive park.
Out
And
near the kelp forest?
yeah, near the edge of the kelp
Yeah.
forest. And after they'd been in there for a couple of months, the divers observed some nudibranchs that were
Yeah.
colonizing the sculptures that they hadn't seen there for many, many years. And
Mm.
it's like this different, I mean, nobody knows, like,
connoisseurs.
yeah, where did they come from? Like now, why are they here now? And so when we eventually had to pull those sculptures out,
Yeah.
when our permit was done,
Right.
the divers all went out and they were like meticulously taking these little guys off and
I'm
trying
like,
to put them back. You stay, you know, we love seeing you.
oh, that's awesome.
Really
Yeah, they
cool.
probably came because they're food, right? The amazing thing is about one of the amazing things is these tiny little creatures are all carnivores,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So they're like grazing carnivores. So they graze on all these encrusting invertebrates like bryozoans and
Yeah.
sponges and anemones. And so those things will settle on hard structures, and then it just brings the larva cue to that food source and then just settle there.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Little smorgasbord for them.
Yeah.
They look like a smorgasbord themselves. It is fascinating that they're not considered tasty by little fish. Who does eat them?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Other, don't they?
Yeah, I don't think there are many things that actually eat them when they're adults, right? I mean, I think some crabs might try and take little bits. Some fish, maybe there's some reports of some fish like folding them on each other to kind of like protect themselves from some of the parts, like especially those with stinging cells with the projections or the serrata, that the fish will like fold them up so the serrata don't fire. But I don't think many things eat them. I actually think probably more of them get eaten when they're plankton and like in their planktonic form than as adults.
They
Yeah,
probably just get like sucked up in that planktonic soup by a whale shark or
totally.
I've not seen one
Totally.
that looks like this. What is this little bug?
Yeah, so this one, I actually realized I put this one in the show. This is actually not a true nudibranch. So this is a good comparison. This is something that has a shell as an adult. So you can see it has this little shell here. And this is Tylodina. It's like a little, called like it looks like a little mushroom. So, but so some of the nudibranchs close relatives do have shells as adults. Like this one, like sea hares, right, that are related to nudibranchs, but don't have shells as adults, but nudibranchs don't. This one's from San Diego, actually. So you can see this diving and relatively locally.
And, and every year I seem to get, message or somebody sends me a photo on, Facebook or something like, what in the heck is this? And it's usually like a sea hare that's washed up on the beach. And I, always feel so bad for them, but the people are fascinated by them once they start to look around and see these guys.
Yeah, for sure.
And this one, oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is an example of an aelid, right? So the dorids are there are a few groups, but the general groups like dorids are those with the little circle of gills and two little rhinophores. And then aelids like this have these serrata or these projections off the back of their mantle, and they don't have specialized gills. They just diffuse oxygen across these serrata, and the serrata are also extensions of their gut. And these are amazing because not only, this is also very small. They call this a Spanish shawl is the common name. It's pretty well known to divers, especially in Southern California. And they eat anemones, and they actually take the stinging cells from the anemones and they process them through their gut and then put them into their serrata to use as their own defense.
That's awesome.
Which is just awesome, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's such a cool thing. And, you see an animal, they seem very vulnerable, right? They're soft, no shell. It's like, well, how do you defend yourself? Well, I'm going to borrow something from you over there.
Exactly. Exactly. Like that looks like it's working for you. So like,
you to borrow your stun gun,
Yeah.
You use the word rhinophore.
Yeah. So rhinophores are the parts that look like antennae. So on this one, this would be those orange with a little white line toward the parts that are spread out. Those are the oral tentacles that are touching the rock, and that's how it finds its prey. But then the things that are sticking up are called rhinophores, which literally means like nose sensor, kind of.
Like the rhinoceros. It's like a horn.
Like a horn, like a rhinoceros. And they're if you could look closely, they're very like they're almost like a feather. They have a ton of surface area with which they can sense chemicals or other signals in the water.
They have senses we can only imagine. I mean, imagine your whole body like this. Oh my gosh, that's
like this one, right? So this is one of the most incredible, and this actually will be very familiar to divers from kelp forests, right? This is Melody, and it has those projections on the back, those serrata, but it feeds in this really interesting way in that it has this big hood and it captures the filter feeder, right? So it captures all those little things, little bits and pieces and plant larvae and other detritus that it finds in the water. And they're incredible.
What's its name?
Melody is the genus, and Leonia, like a lion, is the species name.
Sounds like names for little girls.
It does. Melody is a really cute name.
Yeah.
And this one,
Okay.
I guess if you have it in the lab or you have it in an aquarium, they smell, some people think that it smells like watermelon and people think they smell like lemon. So
And it has got that big roar lion.
yeah, it's like a roaring. And this is
Yeah.
a Monterey Bay Aquarium little gift that they made, which is
Yeah.
great.
Really cute.
Unbelievable.
Now here we are with the little
Yes.
gills and those little horns again.
All right, so now we're back to the just a species called Hypsilodorus, which is one of those chromidorids, those really brightly colored. Just has it's a really just another set of amazing colors.
Yeah. So yeah, we've always kind of talked about how, fashion designers can be inspired by these.
Totally. Yeah, we were chatting before about how recently we celebrated what's called Sea Slug Day on October 29th, which is in honor of Terry Gosseliner. Actually, it's described, I think, hundreds of nudibranchs, 400 or something. It's his birthday, and so a friend of ours, Chris Ma, actually, who studies echinoderms and used to work at the academy, started this day a few years ago. But this year, our social media team did this amazing thing where they had people dress up, like it chose their clothes as inspired by nudibranchs, and we did a little fashion show. And so we'll share that link with y'all later. But it was great fun.
You can just see, you've got so many frills and ruffles and colors and everything else.
Rhinophore.
Exactly.
Yes.
Rhinophore. Yeah.
But you could be like this, just
You
like
could be like this, right?
Bad hair
Yeah, so
day.
this one is amazing. And this one kind of fools you, right? Because it looks like it has those serrata, right? Like the ones with the stinging cells. But if you look closely, you can see it actually has gills. So
yeah.
if you look between those, it has some gills. And this is actually a dorid with these projections.
And you can really see the feathering you were talking about on the
Rhinophores.
Yeah, on the
yeah.
rhinophores. Yeah, and this is also another California species, like a local species. So you can see this diving and you can see this intertidally sometimes.
It's one of the anemone eaters.
This one actually eats bryozoans. So it eats a moss animal, like it eats this pink encrusting bryozoan.
Oh,
It matches in color almost exactly. I think this one actually though is mimicking an anemone. So I think when it's sitting still and not stretched out, it looks a lot like some anemones.
it
Yeah.
is. Oh,
And then these, I wanted to show these. This is something called a Spanish dancer. This is mostly found in the tropics. And we were talking about how small most nudibranchs are, but these are probably, and these were online. This photo you can see was taken in 2000. It's quite an old photo. But this is incredible because these are so big.
Yeah.
They're like the biggest slugs ever. And if you go to the next slide, actually, you can see some divers to scale
yeah.
to
Look
see
at
how
the
big this
Yeah.
slug is.
they're like a
Big carpet.
yeah,
Yeah.
to say a big shoe or a boot, but I've seen these actually.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
dance. They actually
dance.
instead of just crawling along.
They're kind of in the water column. at
Yeah,
times,
they do this remarkable, well, pulsing.
Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
hear
It's like,
almost hear the music.
right. It's like, and that's why they get their common name, right? Because it's kind of like a flamenco skirt, the
Yeah, it's
Spanish
kinda like-
dancer, because they like fold.
Yeah.
That's a very funny,
Swirl.
yeah.
What do these guys feed on primarily?
These eat sponges.
Okay.
They're sponge feeders. This is a really interesting group of slugs, actually, because they have those gills. You can see their big gills on the back. But most species that I've showed you already, they can pull in those gills. Well, some can pull in their gills and some can't. That's like, some just they're retractable. So some have retractable gills and some don't. But the ones, most of them that have retractable gills, they come into like one pocket, like they just go into one little pocket inside their body. But these have separate pockets for their gills, and so they go separately. And so for a long time, people were working to try to figure out like, what is this actually related to? Because it's kind of weird, but it's incredible. And they're very soft. Like if you touch it, I've touched one before. Like when I was in Tahiti, actually, they're just like, they're like velvet.
Yeah, very smooth.
Yeah.
Jello.
Jello. And then this is just the one that's a little closer to home. This is another Dorid. You can also find this in California. This is also called a San Diego Dorid. It's named after where it was first described, was in San Diego. And if you look closely, although these nudibranchs don't have shells, sometimes they have little spicules in their tissue to help give them some structure and provide some additional defense. If you look really closely at this picture, you can see how it looks a little fuzzy. Like it looks a little fuzzy, and those are all tiny little spicules sticking out. And if you were to touch this, it would feel rough. It would feel like I don't know, like a cat's tongue, maybe, like a little rough.
Yeah,
like sandpaper.
It's velvety, but doesn't feel velvety.
Yeah, you get
No.
that little bit of textured, like coarseness to them.
Yeah, exactly. And then this is just for scale, right? That's like I wanted to show this because like that's a really nice close-up picture. But if you look in this photo, there's actually that same species, and it's right there's a sea urchin that you can see that's purple, and then just down to the left you can see that little slug. And if you're tide pooling or diving, like that's often what they look like, right? They don't look like these like pose.
Yeah, they're not like
shots.
boom out there. It's like I can look for this guy.
Yeah, you have to look closely. And actually, if you look in this picture, do you see? Well, I can't actually tell. You can see next to this slug on the left, there's this like pinkish thing that looks like it has a little texture.
Yep.
That's that bryozoan that pink one eats.
Oh, okay, great.
It's having lunch.
Yeah. This one eats sponges though. This one eats sponges better.
Oh man.
And then there's just some other really, I just put a bunch of beautiful slugs in here.
You-
So
You
We're
can't
gonna-
make this stuff up.
We're gonna have all the beauty shots there.
just so you can just be like, and then
Uh-oh,
this
like trouble.
Yeah,
this is
definitely.
trouble, right? So I was talking about how most nudibranchs, or all nudibranchs, are carnivores, and most of them are grazers and eat these encrusting other invertebrates, but some are carnivores and eat other nudibranchs. And so this one is a species in the genus Gymnodorus, this big orange and white one, and it's eating a species of Hypsilodorus, which is one of the ones I study, but they follow those trails and just gobble them up.
It's gonna engulf them, right? Yeah.
It doesn't
Just
sound
like-
fair.
It reminds me, one time I had the boys here when they were younger, and they had a friend over, and they couldn't, they were all upset because we had no video game consoles in the house. But I had a digital microscope, so I went out and I scraped the bird bath and put a prop underneath there, and this kid just went crazy because he watched a paramecium engulfing something, right?
Nice.
Eat it and be eaten. This
World.
is a biogeochemistry
In
action.
action, right? And it's
It
the same
is.
thing, you see this and you're like, no,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of in slow motion. It's not that fast either, right? So
Slug motion, yeah.
slug motion, exactly.
Oh, look at this.
And then this is a beautiful photo that shows some mating slugs, right? So also another amazing thing about nudibranchs is that they're simultaneous hermaphrodites. So they have both male and female reproductive organs at the same time. And so any one can mate with any other one in the same species. And so they come together and they put their reproductive openings together and they swap sperm. And so you can really see that really clearly in this picture, the tubes like through this at the reproductive opening. And yeah, so this one is just incredible. This photo, it's hard to capture that. These are tiny slugs, right? And if someone's diving, right, staying still and like maintaining your location, not getting your bubbles all in this, and then getting this tiny macro shot, it just takes such like incredible skill and expertise. And this one, this photo is by Roberto Sanzi. Sanzi, I don't know this person, but like so spectacular.
It really is. And and to your point, it's really like working on those diving skills when you're trying to, make careful observations and document an area.
Don't want to
Yeah.
interrupt.
No. Be rude,
Yeah. And then there's like some other mating slugs, but then after they mate, each slug will go away and lay an egg ribbon, right? And so this pink here is the ribbon of each of those tiny little pink dots is an egg, right? And so they lay this like beautiful, spectacular ribbon. And they're different shapes, like different species lay different shaped ribbons. But sometimes you just see those too, like you don't see the slug, but you see their egg ribbon, and each of those tiny dots will turn into that little shelled larva that Sylvia was talking about, the planktonic larva in most cases, and they'll have a little shell, and then they'll metamorphose, and they'll settle and turn into this slug adult.
Really looks
Slug
like
adult, yeah.
peppermint candy.
It's funny, yeah,
Does, right?
they go from larva to slug life.
Slug life. Exactly.
Everyone should have a hat like that.
That's right.
Should have one.
But we were pondering like what impact is a more acidic ocean have on these larvae when they come from the ribbon. They really are reliant on that small shell that they
Yeah,
emerge with,
they're
aren't they?
climate indicators in a way, because it's the excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Not all of it stays in the atmosphere. Much of it is absorbed in the ocean. And when too much, the ocean, the CO2 in water becomes carbonic acid, and the trend in recent times is not good for these little guys. Not good for anybody, actually.
Yeah.
Change the chemistry of the ocean, you change everything.
Yeah.
But this is a sign of hope right here. Busy
egg ribboning.
Yeah.
Busy egg ribboning.
Yeah. So which variety is this, and where are they found?
So this one is called Goniabranchus. This is found in the Indo-Pacific as well. There's a whole group in the genus Goniabranchus that have similar color patterns to this, the purple and yellow kind of combination. And one really amazing thing about this is if when they're swimming, some of these species, when they're crawling, they don't swim, not like the Spanish dancer. When they're crawling, they can lift up their mantle, and it's actually purple underneath, and they have this little flapping behavior. And it turns out that all those with that flapping behavior are like each other's closest relatives. So most likely that evolved once, this flapping behavior. But yeah, they're quite spectacular.
Lucky to find them.
Yeah, they're also very small. And then here's another Hypsilodorus laying its egg ribbon on this coral colony.
You can't make this stuff up.
No.
It's just too bizarre and beautiful.
And here's a local California species, a Hermescinda opalescent, or like the opalescent nudibranch. And this is an anemone feeder, hydroid feeder. Yeah, it might be either this one or that.
Yep.
The other might be what it is on the hat. Kind of looks like it.
It's like a match.
It's like a match. We joke on our team and we call this a gateway nudibranch, this one, because often it's like the first one you see tide pooling. Pretty common. It's pretty. It's
a nudibranch.
And then you're done, right?
Yeah,
And then you're like looking for every single nudibranch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we see people that like I've got the little lemon peel one here.
Yeah, like that. That's another California, a West Coast species.
Yeah, and we have
really cool.
Julia Beery, who's a scientific illustrator turned fine artist. She creates all these prints of these nudibranchs. We've had some in our Explore store, but people come in and they say, oh, I've seen that one, and then they reward themselves by getting the print, and then they're pretty soon like, have you seen my collection of nudes? You know.
Exactly.
And
And then then this one, I don't know if you, Sylvia, or Liz, if you've seen this one live. This
yes.
on the left, the Glaucus atlanticus, or so this one is a pelagic nudibranch, right? So it's always swimming, and it feeds on the tentacles of the Portuguese man-o-war and the Velella, these two jellies. Just amazing.
What's amazing, they find enough food to eat, right?
Oh,
yeah. When they do find a Portuguese man-of-war,
it's like
they've got
yum.
groceries for a month.
Yeah,
exactly. I guess they just need to find one, right? So
yeah.
And the little Velella, you don't see just one. You usually see.
Yeah, those are usually found like in a big drift or something like that. But yeah, and people sometimes find these guys washed up on the beach too.
yeah, exactly.
I've seen them out in the ocean in the where it's really blue, the same color that you're seeing here.
Really?
It's impossible, but coastal waters tend to be greenish.
Yeah.
Get far enough offshore, it's that ethereal, amazing blue, and you almost have to look twice. They seem to disappear because
Right.
the shimmer on the blue, and they just blend right in.
Yeah.
They obviously look, they really stand out on a black background, but
Yeah.
the ocean blue, they tend to kind of disappear.
So you
Wow.
get ones like this that disappear up to like a blue whale that disappears in the blue. So it's like that blue camo. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
Wait, it is blue camo.
It is blue camo. That's great.
Slippers, look at those slippers.
Look at these. Yeah. And this is another David Dublé photos, just of these two together.
This is another Dubélé.
Yeah.
image.
Yeah. Dublé. It's like
Yep.
so great.
Those look pretty textured, but I wonder. are they-
Yeah. I think they're pretty smooth. I think it's actually kind of fooling you a little bit.
Yeah. 'cause they
Like
look
that little.
like little bubbly.
Yeah. And these are sponge feeders, and like most of those, like many of the really brightly colored dorids that I've showed, and like the aelids that steal the stinging cells, these actually steal some of the compounds from the sponges that they eat, and they'll take those. You know, sponges need to protect themselves from a lot of different predators, and so they have some pretty nasty like antibiotics and antimicrobial compounds that keep things from settling and living on them. And these nudibranchs will take those compounds and put them into their own tissue. They have, some of them have specialized cells with which to hold those compounds and use that for their defense.
It's really interesting because, you know, we're seeing more and more groups are looking at not only sponges and corals and so forth for biopharmaceutical applications. They're looking at how do some of these animals make use of these things, and how can that potentially be of use to, you know, human medicine.
You barely,
Yeah, for sure.
barely scratch the surface in terms of observing and benefiting.
Looks like a couple different critters here, huh?
Yeah, so this one actually has three
Yeah.
species. Three. You can see the third on the left a little bit. And this was just this photo. The two on the right, the kind of bigger nudibranchs, they're each other's closest relative. They're in this group that's called Mexichromis now. But you can see they share some of those elements of that color pattern, right? They like three stripes down the back. But
Right.
then this one on the far left shares some other elements of its color pattern, like the spotting and the striping. And so this photo was one of the things that really inspired some of my research to figure out, to build a family tree to help understand how some of these color patterns evolved, because we used to just make some guesses about how these things, like the color patterns, might have evolved based on, you know, where things lived. And so I built this whole family tree to kind of test some of the questions about these patterns.
Very cool.
Oh, look at this.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And this last one is just, these are all California species. And
Get out there, look for these guys.
yeah, so the others, a lot of the things I showed today we've looked at are tropical, but then a lot of them are West Coast too. So, you know, it's just as amazing and just as incredible here.
Just such a huge variety, and the way they blend in, but they stand out at the same time, and it's incredible.
The challenge here would be to get great photographs. There's no point in picking them up and trying to take them home with you or something like that. First of all, they're really soft and squishy, and they need to be where they need to be, out in the ocean. In fact, where they are, they're very specific. What you're saying, they stay close to what they dine upon.
Yeah.
Sponges or bryozoans or
Anemones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so taking the pictures is the only way. I mean, yeah, you shouldn't move them around if you see them really, because they've settled or lived near, you know, found a place where they have a good food source. But yeah, good underwater camera, even like a point and shoot that's, you know, waterproof, like those.
Cell phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even that, right? Like just something that has a good macro lens, and I think all of these photos are taken from the tide pools, right? None of these are taken while diving. These are all tide pools. So yeah, getting good at taking photos and patient and figuring out the light and the angles and holding your hand still. That's the way
It's
to do
excited.
it.
Oh, it's shaking.
Exactly.
But let's build upon that a little bit and talk about some of the work you've been doing with iNaturalist to be able to kind of engage citizen science in helping to understand, like, where are these guys found? What are their,
Who are you?
who are you? What are you doing?
Who are you?
How healthy or not healthy is an area, in its biodiversity? Because it's, it's a way that people can really get directly involved and
Get to know your neighbors.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, so far we talked about like incredible nudibranchs, but really focused on like the kind of research I did by myself, right? I mean, kind of by myself, like in a lab or
Sure.
here at the Cal Academy. But the work I do now is really working together with people to, explore nature, whether it's like in a park or in the tide pools, and to work together to document all the species that we can find by taking pictures and sharing them on iNaturalist. Because, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bio blitz,
Yeah.
anybody can
It's
be
an ongoing
participant.
bio blitz.
Yeah. And
Like a forever BioBlitz, right? Not like a time bound BioBlitz,
Yeah.
but a forever BioBlitz, because we really need to know, where species are found and how that's changing. And one of the best ways to learn that information is to have people share like what they're seeing and where they're seeing it.
Yeah.
And by noticing and paying attention and sharing photos, you also learn more because you're paying attention in a different way. And so those are kind of some of the things that we try to do in our work. This is a picture from the tide pools. We also do some with volunteers, do some kind of more traditional monitoring where we put out these little tapes and we count species.
Transects. And
These are transects. Yeah, this is a big circle, like a 10-meter diameter circle. And this is at Pillar Point down in Half Moon Bay, where the Maverick Surf Contest happens, actually. So it's this incredible multi-use space. And we've been doing monitoring there since 2011, basically. And we've been able to, together with volunteers, like document a lot of changes that we've seen, and then like sea star wasting disease, and then recovery from sea star wasting disease. And so we do this, and then we also spend time on the reef exploring and taking pictures, like just looking to see what we can find.
So probably not everybody knows about iNaturalist. I do.
Yeah.
Just give a quick description of this genius app.
I use it I used it the other night I found a really cool moth out by the porch light, and I was like, what is that? Because it was really interesting because its wings were almost clear. And
Wow.
I was like, that is a strange looking moth. And iNaturalist you.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible tool, right? It's an app and a website that anyone can use to take a picture, and you upload it to the app, and you don't have to know what you're seeing. Actually, like most people don't know what they're taking pictures of, but the app is really amazing. It has this machine learning built into the app, so it will make suggestions about what you've seen. And it will compare your photo to all of the photos that other people have made and shared on iNaturalist. And I think there have been, almost over 100 million observations from all over the world have been shared on iNaturalist. And so it's really good at looking at real pictures that real people take and helping to identify what it is. And then there's a community of people online that help verify or help confirm that identification. And so, people use it to be like Liz, like, what moth is this on my porch? Or, what flower is this that I see as I'm walking to work or in this park? And when you use it, you start learning, right? By uploading, and you learn more about what you're seeing. You can use the app to kind of keep like a life list, like all the things you've ever seen, whether it's like underwater or in the park. You can use your phone, and most people do use the phones, but you can also use, more specialized cameras like underwater cameras or cameras with big lenses, and you can upload your images on the website, not on your app. And you just need to, the app knows who you are because you're logged in, and where you were and what time it was and what day. And what it is. And those are the same kinds of data that we have in museum specimen collections. And so collectively, those data really help us get a picture of where things are found.
It's like a visual notebook.
It is like a visual notebook. I use it all the time to find like, where did I see that thing? And like find my pictures. Like I can refine my picture of that, bird or something and remember about it. And
Yeah, well, and because particularly with climate impacts, change is happening at such an accelerated pace that
Yeah.
something like this can really kind of help us to jumpstart the understanding process. Because as we know so many times, if you're out and you're doing sort of traditional science, oftentimes that information gets embargoed, right? For a year or 2 years, and we don't have that kind of time.
It's true.
Looking at these big trends, because by the time it takes for you to research and publish a paper and all the stuff that has to go on, but using something like this, you can probably identify a trend, either good or bad, in a much shorter time frame.
And you've got a lot more eyes out there.
Yeah.
So many more eyes, right? If you imagine like everybody who gets out and is tide pooling during the best low tides, right? If people are making and sharing observations, that's like thousands and thousands of people along the coast of California, or people that are diving. And you share, and I know for a lot of divers, it's not really their like workflow to, upload photos to iNaturalist. It's usually like Flickr or like somewhere else to some dive site. And so I think, we would love to have more divers sharing photos. We run an annual event called Snapshot Cal Coast that happens over 2 to 3 weeks every summer, where we encourage people to get out during the lowest low tides, but also okay time to dive, and to make and share observations. And then we gather them all together, and we're actually, this work is funded by the state of California, and we're working with them to build a tool that mobilizes these data more immediately, right, to help build like an early warning and forecasting system for changes that we're seeing along the coast. Because like you said, Liz, like, I can see trends, and I've seen changes and trends, and like I can work and write a paper, which, is important, but the pace is pretty slow. And we need to make decisions to help manage our oceans better, like more immediately. And then on top of that, by getting people out to the places, the coast where they live, or, getting them out to the coast, it helps people be more connected to the ocean, and then connected to each other, because it's a it's a group effort. It
reignites curiosity that's so often been, sort of mashed down as we become adults, like don't get wet, dirty. But this is, just even through this app, that can just kind of help you remain curious.
No
exactly.
No grown up either.
Yeah, because it's, really, it is the adults, right, that like need that reminder to be curious. Like people ask me all the time, like in citizen or community science, you must just work with kids. And I'm like, no, actually, I mostly work with adults and families. And we're the folks that need to be reminded to be curious. Like kids are pretty curious on their own. And I think maybe more importantly, like we're also the ones who are making decisions right now that can make a difference. And so like it shouldn't be up to just kids, it's up to us, right, to do better.
And it's great to see when it happens, when it happens with an adult. I had a customer came into our Explore store, and they're like bolted in the door, and like, I just saw a bat ray. I saw a bat.
Oh my gosh.
I saw a bat ray. They're like, so can I snorkel there? I want to go back. I want to see the bat ray. And I'm like, well, there's a lot more you could see. But just when the curiosity is re-sparked, they're like amazed. They just really light up. It's wonderful to see.
Yeah, it's really incredible, right? And it makes you pay attention more too, because and it's like if you have a community to share it with, right? That's like what you said. It's like that social aspect. Right. Like you want to go share it with someone and say like, look what I found, like this is so cool. And that's one of the things that iNaturalist provides, right, for more and more people. And then we try to provide that like in person. And these are just like the goals of our department, right? And it's one of these things that we were just talking about, right? It's like help people connect to nature, help people build community around nature and be together. use these data for good things.
Well, it's
So
like,
that social aspect is really important.
and as you often say, with knowing comes caring,
Yeah.
if
You
Yeah.
can't care if you don't know.
If you don't know. Yeah.
Life
And like that's when, yeah, we've totally found that, like especially along the coast where we've seen, we really can see changes, right? Where people are seeing like starfish wasting or new species moving north. It's
right,
like a way for people really to see what climate change looks like in a really tangible way,
right,
not just like the way, like a distant, far off thing.
exactly. There's the app.
Yay.
Okay,
Just
this is a little bit just about how it works.
There's that lemon peel again. That's like the most appealing drink, huh?
I think this is the one that's in that beautiful drawing that you had, beautiful
Yeah, it
painting.
is. Yeah, there he
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and it's just a community, right? It's in person and online, right? So these are just a bunch of INET and INET users and identifiers.
It's too much fun for scientists to keep to themselves.
that's
I mean,
right.
really.
It is.
Everybody
It is.
can get help. But we seem to have a few questions stacking up here.
Oh, great.
We're gonna come back to our Q&A.
Oh, how fun. Look at all these questions.
I know, right? So let's see what we've got going on here.
Hmm.
Okay. Rebecca, this is from an anonymous attendee. A few years since I scouted for nudibranchs with you at Pillar Point. How many species of nudibranch have you found to date at that location?
I am going to look it up right now so I can tell you the actual right answer. But this is the nudibranchs are like the nudibranch diversity off our coast is really, really incredible. And on a good day, like the best day ever, tide pooling and looking for nudibranchs, I think we found just over 30 species in one day.
That's wild.
Which is a lot. But we've seen more over time because they're also a little bit seasonal. So if I look on iNaturalist, like I just searched our project, we've seen 65 species overall.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. Here, I can give this link actually to put it in the chat. This is all the nudibranchs we've ever seen at Pillar Point in that chat.
And
wonder what role they actually have. Everything has a place.
Yeah.
And if there were no nudibranchs, would the world stop? Probably not, but it would be less not only less interesting,
less colorful,
less imaginative, but it's this give and take.
Yeah.
The nutrients that have developed over, we have such a hard time imagining what 10 million years is. But what can happen in terms of developing these intimate relationships, that nudibranch only eats that kind of sponge.
Right.
And that one over there has a preference for sea anemones or whatever. But it's like an orchestra with all the little pieces just doing their melodious interactions. But we have other.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's beautiful.
All right. We have another anonymous question. Have you noticed a change in the number of local nudibranchs with ocean warming and increasingly acidic water?
That's a great question.
We kind of talked.
It's a great question. Yeah, we talked a little about this. So that really beautiful bright pink nudibranch that we were looking at that had all the little projections off it. That species is a really good example. It kind of illustrates my answer to this question is that this is normally found, off the coast of California, usually diving depths. It's more common in Southern California, but we'll see it occasionally during warm water years, during El Nino events where the warm water pushes more of the larvae up north. We'll see it in the tide pools. And a few years ago in 2014, when we had this really warm water blob off the coast, combined with a kind of sort of El Nino event, that nudibranch became the most common species in the tide pools, like hundreds, like you couldn't even count them, right? It was just like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And at first you're like, wow, this is so cool. I'm seeing these pink nudibranchs, like it's so beautiful. And then you start thinking like, whoa, like this is weird, right? This is not normal, you know, what does this do to this like balance or the symphony, like Sylvia was saying. And so we have seen shifts, and that was just kind of like a temporary shift. It lasted for, I don't know, maybe a year, 9 months to a year, and then they kind of like faded away, I think. But we are seeing species that are kind of marching up north, right? And so there's another species that that's called Fidiana hiltoni that you know, when I first started, well, in the late 80s, it was the furthest north it was found was Pillar Point in Half Moon Bay. And now it's found, I think the furthest north it's been found is in Sonoma County, right?
Wow.
So that's in a pretty short period of time where the waters are warm enough for it to survive in a different place. And so we have seen lots of changes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but one of the reasons we know that is because people are making and sharing observations. So some of the research about how far north they are being found is because people are sharing their observation.
Keep after it. All right. Victoria says, I was wondering if Rebecca ever heard of the sound of a nudibranch.
What?
New species of nudibranchs can actually make a sound that's audible to a human. It was reported it was like wiretapping on the side of a jar at intervals. Are these sounds defensive, attracting a mate, or why did they do it?
Oh my gosh, I love this. I've never heard this. So now I want to go figure this out.
Hydrophone out there.
I'm like, I need a little hydrophone. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can imagine them making sounds when they're eating, right? They have this hard kind of ribbon of teeth that they use to scrape. And so you could definitely hear that, right? If you were listening. But I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about it, or like do some research to figure out what the sound might be.
That's
That's fascinating, though.
Yeah.
I know, right, Victoria? I'm gonna write it down.
Well, it's remarkable the diversity of creatures that actually make sound and communicate sounds that we cannot hear, either too high, too low, or too inconspicuous. Like, who has their ear up next to a nudibranch? For
That's right.
Right. While they're eating a sponge, like we just wouldn't. Right.
Right. But
I mean, yeah, it's super interesting. Like one of the things that I find fascinating about them is I was mentioning that some have a smell, right? And so there are some, they have these, you know, these compounds, obviously that have a smell that we can smell out of the water. And there are a number of species, the Melody, there's some Acanthodoris, there's one that smells like sandalwood. If you rub on it, it smells just like sandalwood. And so what is that like underwater, right?
Yeah.
So like, you know, just because we can smell it above water. Like,
there's a lot going on. The whole body is immersed, and you have a sensory capacity throughout your whole body. And fish, for example, with their lateral line, and their mouth has, you know, we have taste buds inside our mouth, but many fish actually have taste buds that go all the way around their face.
Yeah.
And we're just beginning to even try to imagine what they sense. What's it like to be a fish or a nudibranch, or a shark or a sponge? But sound in particular, you know, probably all fish, like all birds, all mammals, as far as we know, all vertebrates, that would include all fish, make sounds.
Yeah. Right.
We don't always tune into it. Either their sounds are at a different pitch that we generally don't hear.
Right.
Some, like croakers, croak, and grunts grunt.
Right. Exactly.
Odd or notable for the sounds that they make. And you
Really
with that grouper.
Oh yeah, the big thwomp. Yeah.
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 We're gonna have to delve into that one.
Yeah.
We are the thing about all those, I mean, maybe we should think about like all those vertebrates, like they can also hear.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so, but nudibranchs can't hear.
Well, they
Can
probably
they?
feel.
Can they? They can feel, right? They can feel the vibration.
Yeah, they can feel.
Yeah.
We'll have to. Now she's all look.
Yeah.
She's
So maybe it's it's like spiders. I'm like, oh, figure it out.
Curiosity in action here.
Curiosity in action. It's a great question.
Right. So Catherine is asking, we're saying nudibranch excitement recently in Lake Merritt. in
Yeah.
California on a dock fowling community. 10 species were observed, including species that had not been observed there before. It's on iNaturalist. This is after the fish kill and succession of potential nudibranch prey and sapsucker forage. I mean, how do you think these coastal species came in? Because it is kind of like this weird tidal lake, you know, in
Yeah.
Brackish Lake. And I know they see like bat rays, leopard sharks and stuff in there, sturgeon occasionally. Do larvae or adults raft in on other food species?
Yeah, I mean, this is an incredible thing that happened in Lake Merritt. I mean, first there was the big die-offs, right, because of the red tides throughout the bay. And incredible naturalists like Katie, who asked this question, and Damon Teague and Adrian, like all these folks that we know through this work and do incredible work in Lake Merritt, documented the kill, but then also like I have been documenting this incredible bloom of nudibranchs. And I think, like Katie said, it's like there was more space because of the die-off. There was more space for the invertebrate food to settle. And then the larvae settled following the invertebrate food. And so I think it probably is a combination. Like, I think it's likely that if there's tidal flow in Lake Merritt, I mean, it's part of the bay. And so the conditions are just right that this larva made its way and was able to settle and find food. And there's some incredible things that are found in Lake Merritt, like the fish that you mentioned.
Yeah.
There also, when people have found spiny lobsters, California spiny lobsters in Lake Merritt during El Niños, like when the water's warmer and the larva make its way in there. So that's what I think probably has happened. But they've there are a couple other like women, cricket and robin, like folks that have taken these like incredible photos and documented potentially even new species like that might be introduced or might be not, but because of this new plethora of their food.
I love this idea. It's an urban laboratory.
It is.
Yes,
It's
it
right
is.
We're-
It's right there, right? Like the first urban wildlife refuge, Lake Merritt, and some
All
really
right.
incredible,
You've got like
incredible
four
place.
questions we're
Oh
gonna try
my
to get
goodness,
through.
okay.
All right, let's try to get them. We'll do like a rapid fire. We'll do
Yeah.
like a lightning round.
What is the, this is Jenny, what is the average lifespan of a nudibranch? Are there any big differences
Gosh.
between the species? You're on the hot
This is
seat.
this is a hard question. We don't actually know. Many nudibranchs are kind of annual, like maybe they live a year,
Mhm.
but some live live longer. So I'm just gonna have a short answer for these, but we don't know for a lot of them. But some of those big species, the pictures I showed are probably much older than a year.
Yeah, you'd think like the
Need to
Spanish
tag 'em.
dancer. Yeah,
Need
yeah,
to- need to
nudibranch
tag
tag,
'em.
something.
Yeah, you need to tag them. Yeah, exactly, and follow them around.
So Jean is asking, do most nudibranchs make their own secondary anti-predator compounds, or they mostly acquire them from their prey?
So most of them acquire it from their prey, but some can make de novo compounds on their own. And maybe in some cases it's a combination. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a mix. They're incredible little chemists.
And Heather is asking, do you think that nudibranchs can see color?
Oh my gosh. Hi, Heather. Well, some nudibranchs have eye spots, and you can see them if you look at pictures closely. You can see their little eye spots like facing up, and some actually facing forward, and they can see light and dark. But there's not a lot of evidence that they can see color. So their colors are likely not for like mating or anything like that.
But who knows?
But who knows, right?
Yes. And then finally, Caroline is asking, she wonders if she missed you saying this earlier on, but what is your favorite nudibranch?
Oh my gosh, that's such a hard question.
It's child.
Well, I'll say like for this year, my favorite nudibranch, there's an amazing slug called Babakina festiva that's found off the coast of California. It's pink. It has these like candy corn serrata. I didn't have a picture. Everyone can Google it and look at it. It does not look like it's found in California. And I have never seen it until this year. And I'd spent like, people would send me pictures of it, like cell phone pictures from like 10 feet away. They're like, what's this nudibranch, Rebecca? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a nudibranch that I've never, ever seen. So I finally saw it this year. So Babakina festiva might be my favorite right now.
That's just like such a descriptive name, right?
And it's such a good name. It's like a party, right? So it's Babakina. So Baba, B-A-B-A, is actually named after a Japanese researcher who studied nudibranchs here, Dr. Baba, and Kina, so Baba Kina, and then Festiva, like a party.
Amazing.
Yeah,
As well have fun while you're naming.
you
them.
might as well. If you're naming, you might as well have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And
Oh my gosh.
before we sign off today, we'd like to just say how much we appreciate everyone, appreciate the Ocean Elders for sponsoring these conversations, hosting us, and to our wonderful guests like Rebecca, and to all of you out there who keep tuning in with us and diving in and coming up with great questions and remaining curious, not staying dry.
Yeah. The
Water-
urge to submerge, go
Yeah,
for it.
and water
Yeah.
does affect us all.
Yeah.
You just believe that, we really can make a difference, and really applaud everyone for everything they're doing. We're going to be back next time. We're going to have Terry Gosliner next time.
Oh my
So-
gosh. Well, I hope I didn't steal his slides.
You did. No, I'm
Okay, good.
have a lot more to talk about through more of a Nudivember.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, I'm so glad you and Sylvia and Terry can reminisce, and
Yes.
you all can look at some nudibranchs.
Yeah.
Ask him questions.
Ask him questions. Yeah, like, you can be the anonymous questioner and like throw some.
Zingers.
Oh, I will. I will. There's a quite funny interview that our team did with him, kind of in a satirical style. I'll send it to all of you. It's on our Instagram and TikTok.
Very good.
Very funny.
Well, until next time, remember, take care of the ocean.
As if your life depends on it, because
It
does.
does. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks so much.
See
Thank
you.
y'all.
Bye for now.
Bye, Sylvia. Bye, Liz. Thank you.
Bye-bye.